Bat Force Radio.
Bat Force Radio is rated M for mature, or should that be immature?
Hey guys, Dustin Nguyen.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Paul Dini.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Tom King. I write Batman Bitch, and this is Bat Force Radio.
Welcome back to Bat Force Radio, the Batman and DC podcast with no limits. First episode of 2020. We are finally joining the future. If I'm honest, I was quite happy to save the first episode of 2020 for today's guest. So let's get to the round table. We've got Bat Force Tom in California.
What's up, dudes?
Making his triumphant return to the show is the Trunkler in Chicago.
1 for 1 in 2020, boy.
Trunkler 2020. Boy. We've got the Bat Force Times in New York, and I'm Robin Cross in Canada. So today's guest is a multi-Eisner Award-winning artist known for work like Scott Snyder's American Vampire, his runs on Streets of Gotham and Detective Comics with Paul Dini, which include The Mighty Heart of Hush, the Descender series with Jeff Lemire, followed by the currently running series Ascender, and now following his Batman series Little Gotham with Derek Fidolfs, Batman Tales Once Upon a Crime will be in stores February 5th. Welcome to the show, somehow for the first time ever, Mr. Dustin Nguyen.
Yes.
Yeah. Guys, thanks for having me on, man.
Thanks so much for taking the time to do this, Dust. How has life been?
It's been busy, man. It's just, it's like, you work at home, and I think most freelancers guys like, oh, it's great, but, half the time you don't know when the day starts and when your day ends, and it just kind of, I don't know what day of the week sometimes it is. Sometimes it just keeps going. It's like one continuous day.
when do I get out of pajamas?
Yeah, and because I live in California, so it's like the weather's always the same. So you don't really know what season it is sometimes, Yep.
Dustin, I'm not even nearly as busy as you are, and I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, it's it's like I sound busy, but really it's just poor time management, No, it really is. Like, because guys like Sean Murphy, he works like maybe, he's like, I work only weekdays, I don't work weekends, and that guy gets so much done. And like I've seen his workspace, it's like it's seriously just a box, like a small room, and pure concentration. And I'm like, this is what I need. But then, I tried doing that, it doesn't work. I'm just over the place.
And he does it so effectively too. The dude never misses a deadline and like has a rule against missing deadlines. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's
for someone
who's
and for someone who's writing and drawing so much of his own work, that's outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, it's the writing and the drawings. He kind of slims it down on both. So no, just kidding. It's great. Yeah, no, that guy has crazy work discipline. I envy it a lot. Every time I see his stuff, I'm like, damn, I got to draw more. And it's the way he handles his time. It's just great. He's got time to work out and hang out, and it's great.
And order swords online.
Yeah. And grow a beard.
Yeah.
Where does
I was disappointed that he chopped his hair off. He was really looking like he was in an indie rock band for a while.
Oh, did he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, last I thought it was quite a bit shorter.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen him in a while. Like, the guy looks like the sheriff from Walking Dead. I always tell him.
I saw you post about that once. It was a picture of the two of you, and you said something about this being the season when he was still the sheriff.
Yeah, man. It's always either he's the sheriff and I'm Glenn, or he's Indy. I'm Short Round. I'm like, dude, that's never like. I never get him like, please, no, dude.
Well, I think it's clear that Sean's the leading man. That's the way it is every time he's on our show too.
Just happens, dude.
He just takes over, and we end up talking about Rob Liefeld for an hour.
Yeah, and then the deal.
He's been on the show a few times or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're his exclusive place for talking about White Knight stuff.
I can smack.
Aside from
Yep.
his own podcast,
But
which is kind of genius.
let's talk about this Dustin Nguyen guy. The first thing I wanted to ask, because we haven't had you on the show before, could you take us through what began your journey in art? Like, what was that thing that made you think, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to be an artist.
You know what? I mean, I'm just like, I think like most people, you just kind of start drawing at a young age. I've always drawn comics. Like but the first time I saw like, I mean, I've always drawn, but the first time I actually like saw like comics was like during the the early Image days, when Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, when they put out like Young Blood and Wildcats, and you're like, whoa, this is cool. But like before that, I knew comics, but I only read the indie stuff. I only read like the Black and White Ninja Turtles. I read some Batman, but it was just like I think I stopped reading Batman around the time when Jason Todd got killed off, and I think that's as far back and early as I can remember actually following Batman. Then after that, it was just like picking up a few issues here that had a cool cover, but I never really read it continuously. But the one books I always read was the Eastman and Lard's Mirage Studio stuff, that and like Blade and Morrow stuff. But yeah, it's I would say probably the Image days when Jim and them made it exciting. Like they had those Killer Instinct tours and stuff like that. So
is that what got you drawing, or had you already been drawing before that?
I've already been drawing, but that's what got me drawing like characters and comics. But I mean, it was always for fun. But it wasn't until like I think 90. I want to say 97, 96, 90. I think it's 97. I was at UC Irvine with my my girlfriend, or my wife now, but she was going to college there, and I was just hanging out. And then I saw it's like those little Comic-Con books. They were like they said there was a Comic-Con in San Diego, and I saw it and I took it home. I was like, whoa, this is cool. So I was going through. It was like a little program guide, and had like an Alex Ross cover on it. I still have it. I was like, oh man, this is cool. I'm gonna go and check it out. And I read through there. There's like portfolio reviews. So like I just started working on my portfolio, but I didn't know what the hell how comics were made even. So, but I just drew what I thought it looked like. So I drew like God, I forgot what samples they were. They were Weapon Zero samples. Do you remember that book from Top Cow with Joe Benitez?
Yes.
It was called Weapon Zero. So I did those samples and I brought it and I got there and I met like some some people were back then. Portfolio review was kind of like where the small press is now to the right side, and the way they have it is you get in line and they have a bunch of booths and you just get an interview with whoever's open. So it wasn't really like you brought it to DC, you brought it to Marvel. It's just called portfolio review. And I was standing in line, just met a bunch of other people, and I met some of my friends now, and they were showing me how to. They're like, yeah, dude, you got to draw like this, and then someone inks it. I was like, I know what an inker is, Like, so we just kept in touch, and they showed me how to put together a book. The guy that showed me how to draw pages on 11 by 17 and inking and all that is actually the guy that runs the print shop now, that does all my prints and sketchbooks and everything. He started his own print company, and he handles like the entire, I would say, most of the West Coast artists over here. So, which is great,
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
But yeah, it's called SGX. There's a plug.
Nice.
He showed me. He's like, yeah. So we moved in together after that, and we started a thing called Immortal Studios. And I was like, that's a dumb name, dude. And he's like, I know. I was like, I'm the guy coming in. I was like, dude, what are we, like a rock metal band or something? It's so
Sounds
stupid,
like it.
Yeah. So, but it was cool. So we got a gig doing, one of the guys, he knew another guy that they were working on a comic book, like a 10-page comic book for the back of some video game. I don't remember, but they're like, dude, you're really good with Photoshop. You want to colorist? I was like, yeah, I'll be a colorist, So I came in as the colorist. So that was like the first time we got like pro badges for the year. That was like 98 or something.
Nice.
And so from then, we just try to do different things to keep getting the pro badge. And so that's it. Just do samples every year. And at the time I was working as a 3D designer for an aerospace company out here called Sphere Drip.
Okay.
They're like kind of like aerospace, kind of like retail kind of dude. They just did a lot of stuff for like Northrop Grumman and stuff. And and they got bought over by Jacobs Engineering, but it was like an engineering firm. So I did 3D stuff for them, but I did a contract where I would work like, I don't know, like 8 months out of the year or something, and then I'd save up, and then you'd save up all that money to pay for hotels and flights out to. There was only 2 cons at the time. There was Chicago and San Diego, 2 big ones, and just doing. I'd work all year, save up for the summer, and just do samples for those 2 shows. And those shows were probably like a month or 2 apart. So when the editors saw you, they're like, "Cool, I'll see you next month. You have new samples?" I was like, "I will." And so you go home, kind of just jam on more samples, and it was really hard back then, like, because I wasn't really at the speed I was now, and not comfortable. And I mean, you could barely draw, but you're like, dang, I got to do 5 pages in a month, which sounds crazy, like a crazy amount of work. And now it doesn't, but back then it was like a lot of work. But yeah, just eventually got to do a bunch of samples. Then got to a point where I was always hanging around the DC booth showing editors my stuff. To a point where they were like, "Hey, go show it to that guy." I was like, "I already showed it to that guy,"
Mm-hmm.
And it was Wildstorm. That time, Wildstorm had just started working under DC or something like that. Something like that, yeah. So John Lehman, who was the editor back then, he picked up my stuff and he called me at home. And back then, we still had answering machines. And he actually left a message on the studio answering machine, It's like, "Hey, this is John Lehman from, Wildstorm. I just want to give you a call and if you can come in." I was like, "Oh, shit." And I left that message on there for a while so I could play it back to the guys and rub their face. Had like 6 dudes in the six people living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Long Beach. And I took one room, and Edwin, the guy that Prince took the other room. At that time, he was working on samples too. He was like a huge Will Patachio fan because I think it's Will was Filipino and so is he. I was like, "Edwin, that's racist."
But in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Should have guessed with that name, Edwin. I'm not kidding you. I have 3 friends named Edwin, all Filipino.
See, that works.
Yeah.
But the time it was just so that him and we both lived there. Is that my phone? Hold on a second.
Unprofessional.
Come on.
Oh, is that my phone or someone calling me?
I don't know.
It's probably your editor. Deadlines, dude. Deadlines.
I think it's Dan DiDio, actually, Tom.
Oh, no.
Nice.
Hey, Dustin, what are you doing on a podcast? I got to get some stuff done.
Dan loves me. No, it's I guess
loves
my
him too.
messaging, when messages come through, they vibrate my phone and beep. Can you guys hear it or no?
Barely.
Okay. No, so at the time I was saying it was just me, Edwin living there, and then we had a living room, and the living room was entirely we just emptied out and put nothing but drawing tables in there, a TV, and we just had Street Fighter set up 24/7. And
That's awesome.
yeah, it was like a big studio that, when you're there, you just draw. And the thing is, Edwin actually runs he's a club promoter. So he MCs and he promotes clubs, and they do like import show off those cars, basically cars and Asian people, so half the time it was filled with like people that were promoters for the party there. They were always just, drinking and hanging out, eating, like leaving all the equipment with smoke machines around and everything. And the other time it was for drawing. So like, it was just like a fun place to be creative. But then, it seems like we would draw all the time because there was always tables there, but I would only get drawing done at night when actually everyone's asleep or everyone left the house already. So Edwin and I would just sit there and we'd just draw, and we worked on samples. Eventually I started at Wildstorm, and I was in Long Beach at the time. Wildstorm was in San Diego, and I would have to drive there. It was a 2-hour drive there and a 2-hour drive back. It was brutal, but I started carpooling with Eric Canetti, who also started Wildstorm at the time. And so we would actually like make mixtapes, and this is when mixtapes were still mixed CDs. We're not that old. Mixed CDs. And we'd drive back and forth and we'd hang out. I got to know Eric real well, and I think we got sick of each other. When you spend 4 hours a day with someone in a car, you run out of things to say, But Jim was like, "You sure you don't want to just move down here? Just live in one of my houses?" I was like, "What the hell is that?" At one of his houses. He's like, "Yeah, just rent a room." They have I was like, "Man, I'm barely making like I think my starting rate was like, you know, I went from making like so much, dude, from, you know, in 3D design to, I think like I made like a third or a fourth of what I was making just because I wanted to work in comics, you know? And I was like, you know, this can work. But it's like, you get paid by the page, not by the hour, you know? And it got exhausting because, you know, you drive in, you work, but you're exhausted from the drive, and then you pack up, you go home, and it's not like you go home from work. You go home and you draw again, because that's what comics is, you know? It's like having homework for the rest of your life. It's forever. And so I was like, dude, it's not working. So that's when I eventually asked if I could go freelance. So they were real cool, and that's when they gave me my first contract. And I was exclusive I was exclusive there from like 2001 or 2 or something, all the way to like 2013. It was like 12, 14.
Jeez.
It was long. Yeah, they were really cool. At one point, I thought that, because I worked in-house at the studio, and I thought I was freelance. So I actually took off because my girlfriend moved to Ohio for school, and I was like, oh, cool. I'll just drive out there too. So I drove out there, and I ended up staying in Ohio. And I was gone for like probably a week and a half until my editors like saw me on, you know, IM, and he's like, hey, where are you? We haven't seen you in a few days. I was like, oh, I'm in Ohio.
Oh shit.
He's like, well, what the hell are you doing in Ohio? I was like, oh, I'm out here. I'm just, you know, I'm still drawing, you know, I'm turning in pages. He's like, dude, you know you're an in-house employee, right? I'm like, what?
Oh my god.
he's like, I thought you were sick this whole time. I was like, I draw comics. This is what we do. He's like, no, man. It's like, you're an in-house employee. You're supposed to be in here every day. And I was like, and so I got on the phone with him, and then I got on the phone with Scott Doombeer at the time. Doombeer was head of Wildstorm editorial, and he's like, do you want to stay over there? I was like, well, you know, I'm kind of broke. It's not like I'm drawn enough. And you know, they got John Nee on the phone. John Nee was president of Wildstorm at the time. And they're like, well, do you want to stay there? I was like, I want to stay there, but I want to work. But it's like, you know, I'm not really making a lot and stuff. And so John Nee was really cool. He's like, all right, dude, we'll put you on exclusive, and, you know, we'll write you a personal loan, and then you can pay us back whenever, you know? I was like, well, you know, I'll pay you back, but I need work. He's like, don't worry about it. We'll figure out something, and we'll find you work so you can pay me back. And I was like, this is great. You know, this deal works out really well for me. But no, that's why I really love like the guys at Wildstorm in DC. Like, even like when I was like having it rough, they were just make enough work just so I could have money for work, you know? And they kept. And so I gladly signed exclusive, because they're like, well, you want to be exclusive, you get some health benefits and stuff. I was like, yeah, sure, you know. And it was great. So I was freelance. That's when I started working on Wildcats. That was on Wildcats. And then while I was in Ohio was when they asked me to jump on Batman with Judd Winnick, who actually I'm back with for this Robin issue for the first time since like 2000 something. So yeah, I'm back with Judd Winnick, and that's what kickstarted the my way into comics. So I know it's a long story.
That's awesome, though. That's crazy.
And that's very cool that you're doing some more work with Judd Winnick. We love him here too. He was on with us just a few months back.
Oh, great. Yeah. The guy's like, he's so good, man. It's like, he's so enthusiastic, and he knows the characters really well. Like some of the stories he tells, like, you know, like you wouldn't really tell those stories if you didn't know the characters well. And
yeah, exactly.
You know, he does that well. That's what I love about it. So yeah.
And he's done a good job of making things happen. Like obviously we got Red Hood in the comics, the Under the Hood story, but he was the one that had also pushed for making the animated movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I saw the movie. Yeah, the movie's one with They didn't use Tim Drake, right? They didn't have Tim Drake at all, right?
No Tim Drake.
But it was like Jason Todd in Tim Drake's costume, though, right? Something like that. Like everyone wears.
At the beginning, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I think at the beginning it was, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it was great, man. So I might have missed some things in there, but that's pretty much most of how I get comics.
I think you missed a big one. So, you know, like as an artist, obviously, you guys have to make sure that you're like, you mentioned the sleep, and, you know, there's like not much sleep. You need your energy. When was it that you discovered the beauty of In-N-Out?
The beauty of it. Dude, I used to work at In-N-Out.
Right? No way.
Exclusive.
Wow.
And I was there for a good like year right after high school, and
They got real mad when you would leave and go to Ohio for a week.
they would, dude. They would. No, they were. No, it's weird. It's one of those places where once you work somewhere, you see how the sausage. You're like, oh, this is great. Dude. After working there, it made me even like it more. I was like, this shit really is freaking fresh. Right. And like, dude, they take care of the food. Everything is like tip top. Like one of our managers got fired. He wasn't a first manager. He was like a third manager or something. He got fired because they ran out of cheese, and he went to the grocery store next door and got cheese. But here, they didn't fire him because he used cheese from the grocery store. They fired him because they said you should have been more prepared as a manager. And I was like, oh man, that's like But no, they're very like they're very strict. They're very strict. But they're also kind of like, I would say they're strict to the point where it's kind of creepy, like they only see themselves,
that's kind of how a business like that has to operate to be think about it, dude. They're not publicly traded. They're still privately owned, and they're that massive. It's pretty crazy.
They're crazy. They run a tight ship, man.
Right.
And you know what, like I love them, dude. Like if I had a big event, I would actually cater, because my cousin had a wedding and he had them catered for the wedding.
Wow.
And I thought it was expensive, dude. Yeah, it was like surprisingly very cheap. Like not cheap, but it was like, I think it was like $1,500, and it serves up to like 200 people or 100 people or something like that. And then after that, you just pay like $1 or something.
For a wedding, that's nothing.
Yeah, for a wedding, that's nothing, dude. And well, he did it as like basically we had the dinner, and then he's like, yeah, I got a surprise for you guys outside.
Nice.
He did like a farm, so we came out. We're like, oh shoot. So they have everything but fries. Instead of fries, they serve you chips, because I don't think they have fryers on the car. So.
Probably start a fire that way.
I guess, dude, but worth it.
But the problem would be how many more people do come to the wedding because you're being catered by In-N-Out.
Wedding crashers.
Oh well, I think I've got something going on that. Oh, In-N-Out? Okay, yeah, I'll be there.
Dustin, I don't know if you remember this, but I don't remember what year at San Diego, but this was when they still had the Marriott. Was it the bar at the Marriott? Is that the Marriott, or was it the Manchester Grand Hyatt?
Yeah, the Hyatt.
Yeah, but they didn't have it last year because they remodeled it and they didn't put in a new bar or something. But one year we were down there, and then we were talking to you. We were all, there. We were many, many, many drinks in, and we were just like talking to you about something. And then one of us was like, "Oh, we're gonna get some In-N-Out," and you're like, "Yeah, let's go get some In-N-Out, let's go." And I can't remember who you were with, but they were like, "No, dude, like we have to go," and you kept saying, "No, I'm going to go get In-N-Out," and they were trying to talk you out of it because
it sounds like it.
The nearest In-N-Out is not close by to the convention center. I think it was like 20 minutes away. None of us had. I think we were going to take like an Uber or something. But the thing was, I think like at one point they said, "You told me to tell you can't leave." Mm-hmm. Like I guess you had wandered off.
This has to be a while back, because I actually barely ever go out anymore at cons.
Dude,
so this has to be a while back.
It was at the hotel bar, and I remember thinking like he must have
those little
wandered
round
off.
tables, right?
Right. Like something must have happened to where like you either like wandered off the night before and got lost or something, or like something happened to where you told the person you were with like, "Do not let me do that again." But you were like dead set on coming. I was like,
he had lived a Hangover movie the year before.
You guys are on an evening like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, so we're not gonna go do drugs. We're getting some In-N-Out.
I know that's pretty bad though. That's even worse.
It's been worse.
Dustin.
Yeah, San Diego was great, man.
Oh yeah.
So
what's not in there? Down right, they haven't opened right down the city, right in the downtown yet.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
So can you tell us what's in the animal style sauce they use?
No, it's just a regular sauce, just more of it. That's all it is, just more of it. Like
because I've been to Cali once and went to WonderCon with Tom and this other guy, and as soon as I got off the airplane from Chicago, first place we stopped at, In-N-Out. Addicted ever since. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. And I think a lot of people, they hate it because people talk about it so much, to the point where they're like, nah, these are the Shake Shack people, they're like in and out,
oh, gunshot.
I
We
think,
got one of those people on here.
The war wages on.
I mean, Shake Shack is great. I just don't know about paying $9 for a burger, man. That's like, it's a lot of money.
It is.
Slider,
It is
dude.
Expensive. But...
It's a slider too in comparison.
But you know what they have that doesn't have that I love is that portobello mushroom. Shit is good.
That is crazy. Does for like our new listeners or people that are new into comics that aren't familiar with your process, can you tell us a little about transitioning from, I believe you went from like traditional illustration to like more watercolor work? Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, I mean, I still do like traditional, depending on the look that we go for.
Yeah.
For Descender and Ascender, I started painting it because, I just wanted to, and I figured since it's my own book, why not? Also, with the Image, we have that flexibility in our schedule where I can actually, I don't want to say that it's that we have a lot more freedom because, to do a good book, you still have to do what you need to do. But I feel like if I was painting my own book, I can actually not have to worry about painting something wrong. Like if I was to paint like a Batman book, I could mistakenly paint him in the wrong, costume color or something, and then there'd be so much stuff to go back and change that it's kind of intuitive just to do it and then have to go back and do a lot of stuff if we don't have that time. Because I know there are guys out there that paint, in the mainstream books, but Descender is like, I want every issue out on time. I want it to, look exactly how I want. So it was like the easiest way to do was to do what you want, but do it on your own time, and Descender is the way to go. And also I wanted a certain look. I always wanted first of all, I didn't grow up painting. I didn't really know how. And I learned how doing those Batman covers. And, it was great because I was on Batman. I was like, can I paint these covers? And my editor, Mike Mart, he's like, sure. He's like, he's like, sure. And he's like, how to paint? I was like, yeah. So, and I just tried it a few times and I really liked it. So I kept doing it to a point where I got real comfortable. So, yeah, I don't really see myself as like, like a painter. I kind of I would say I just draw and then I just kind of, it's just part of it,
Yeah. Well, I think it really establishes the mood for Descender, the way you depict that. I like how it flows with that style for the book.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I wanted to make it look, even though it kind of like, I wanted to make it look of a certain era. Because I grew up like reading heavy metal stuff. And a lot of the books were, done back then, were done really traditionally. And there's a certain like feeling to it. It's like very warm, even, it's very warm. And I still go back to those books. It just, there's a feeling to it that it gives off that it's kind of, it's hard to explain, but,
I also think another word for it is it looks like the feeling it gives off is like important. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like, it's just,
I mean,
there's something more to behold with that kind of style, that mood, that technique, and it's like people use that for like flashbacks sometimes, and flashbacks are supposed to be important, so that's kind of like maybe it has to do something with that. When
that's great. That's a great way to point it out. Yeah, and I also feel like I like tangible things.
Yeah.
So it's like Sean and I, we'd go on about like traditional art. But sometimes I feel like I sold out because I actually did a lot, like this latest story with Jed Winnick. I did it purely digital. It's I'm not really good at inking, but I wanted it to have a certain look, so I went with Clip Studio, and and also it's a time thing. I'm doing that while I'm doing Ascender, and my other I'm doing another kids book. So I'm doing like 3 books at once. So I'm kind of got to pick and choose which one looks the way I want, and which one I have time to do what I want.
Oh, yeah.
And I can honestly say I'm a better inker, or I'm a better digital artist than I am an inker. It's like I suck at inking. It's so hard.
Did you ink the one you did for Batman Black and White #4? Do you remember?
Yeah, that actually is drawn by hand. Yeah, I inked by hand. It was so hard.
Cause it's
that story, man.
Because it's one of my favorites ever where at the end Catwoman's sitting down and then Batman comes and she's like a long night and he's like just beginning or something like that. And
yeah.
I'm looking at it now and I think those inks are amazing, man. You should give yourself a little more credit. That came out amazing.
Yeah. It's like I like the way it looks, like, but it's so hard to do. It's like to get exactly what I want. But that story was like, dude, that story took forever. It's like, they're like, yeah, we want you to, Mark Chiarello, he's like, I want you to write it and draw it. I was like, that's great, Yeah. And I wrote it, and I was like so happy with it. And then I sat on it for probably a year. It's like, you gonna start drawing it? I was like, yeah, And then I got back to it and I read it, and I was like, dude, what the hell did I do? Why am I had pages in there with like 8 panels and all this. I was like, shit, I should have made it easier on myself.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think you definitely stuck the landing on the ending for me, and that's one of the hardest things to do in comics, I think, in general, for any kind of story. So.
Thanks, man. It was a lot of fun though. I mean, and after I finished that, I think that and Little Gotham was the one where I was like, I think did everything Batman that I wanted.
That's
like
awesome.
Everything else now is just like kind of like just would be so cool to do, but it's like you get to I wanted to do 2 things when I got in. I just wanted to draw Batman, and then I wanted to do Batman black and white. Wow. That's all I wanted to do, because when Chiarello still had the black and white line out, that's the only book I read that was Batman. It's like I didn't really main storyline. I didn't care what was going on because continuity changes so much that it's confusing.
Yeah, the black and white stuff's the best. It's what you think about when you think about like great best Batman stories. It's just they always hit the notes and beats with the black and white. It
is, man. It was like kind of like it's like the benchmark of Batman. Like to me, it's like if you got a Batman black and white story where you actually wrote it and drew it and you liked it and
you made the team.
It's like you're on the team. It's like you're actually a Batman artist, and I was like, this is great. And I know that's like that's kind of like patting myself on the back, but it was like when it was done, I was so happy. I was like, this is it. And it was like and it kind of sucks because it's like, yeah, this is it. So what now,
The same can be said for having your own Batman black and white statue, and you've already got 2 of those.
Man, that's fun too, dude. Like that was actually the cool part, because back then you had to have a story to get a statue. You remember that? Like you had, they didn't just make them,
Yeah, they had to.
You had to actually come from the book, yeah.
But
so that was really like
you got the Batman Beyond black and white, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman Beyond black and white was it was weird. I was at DC. I was at the offices, and the art director for the statue, he's like, "Oh man, when are you gonna come back and do more toys for us?" And I was like, oh, I love doing the toys, man. But it's like they take forever, and it pays like crap, and there's no royalties on it, And he's like, well, what do you want to do then? He's like, anything you want to do. I was like, just let me do a Batman black and white statue. Now I said it like walking down the hall. He's like, all right. So as soon as I got home, he emailed me about the invoice or whatever they're called, contract. He's like, you're gonna design a Batman black and white statue. I was like, sweet.
Wow.
So
and that statue is one of the most sought after in the whole line.
In the whole world,
I think it might be the most expensive one right now.
Yeah, it goes for like, if you could find it, they go for up to like $300 now. It's ridiculous. It's
crazy. Really, I have like 12 in my garage.
Well, didn't you color one? You colored one.
Yeah.
The ones I color are actually some of the prototypes. Like I have one where it's like the Christmas one, because actually it's true black and white. There's no gray on. Then I had another one that I don't know, because they send them production samples, and I just keep them.
Nice.
So,
I would like to purchase some of these production samples.
Yes.
Well, hey Dustin, I seen you're coming to C2E2. Feel free to pack one of those bad boys.
They'll break it on the airplane, man. The statue that I really like more than that one of the Batman statue is the original maquette from the animated series. Not the second one, the first one, the one with the redesign. Actually, the second one, not the first one. The one that they had available at the WB store when it was still open.
Right.
I don't know if you guys remember. I'll send you a picture later.
I think I know.
It's the one where they just stand and his arms to the side. They're like the maquette
yeah. Just the static position ones.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. That one actually
it was so accurate.
They actually put those in the middle of the animation rooms, and that's what they used to model everything off.
Ooh.
There. I don't really hear anyone talk about it anymore, but that one was like, dude, those were statues back then. They were heavy too.
How'd you come up with the idea of Little Gotham when you approached DC?
I approached them a few times for that. Like it's back in like early 2000, like 2005, 2006 or something. I just drew it for fun at first because I was like a big fan of like Capcom's Puzzle Fighter. Street Fighter. There's Puzzle Fighter, which is like a super deformed version of Street Fighter characters. They look cool, so I drew like some Batman characters in that, and I pitched it to DC as a set of snow globes. So I had all our characters done. There's Mr. Freeze standing on his head's like a snow globe, and he's like stuck. His feet are in there. Just kind of cute, fun things. Yeah. And I sent to DC, and they're like, this is great, man. But yeah, I don't see a big market for snow globes. And I was like, damn, right. So, they're not wrong. It's very seasonal. They're like, well, we'll see, And but I kept drawing it. I drew it for fun, and I did Mike Martz, my editor back on Streets of Gotham and Detective stuff, which I would have to say is like, one of the best editors out there. Like working with him probably not only built my career, but built my confidence as an artist, as much as anything. And he, for I think 2 of the detective annuals, they requested us to do 2 pages of backstory. And Derek and I, we were like, oh, let's do this little Gotham stuff. And they're like, what's that? I was like, this super deformed, kind of like stylized version. He's like, are they kids? I'm like, they're not kids. They just look this way. That's the way they look. He's like, all right. So we did 2 of them. One was like the street racing one, and one was where the Riddler, dragged the criminals into Arkham. And we did it. Then we tried to pitch it as a series, and DC was kind of back and forth on it because at the time they had a few properties in that look or that kids look that they wanted. But I was telling them, it doesn't have to be a kids, and it doesn't have to be anything. It could be just its own. It's just, but they didn't really know what to do with it, so they sat on it for a while. And then WB actually approached me. WB and DC, even though they own each other, they kind of work separately. So WB approached me and they said, they're doing this gallery and they're looking for a few different styles. So you want to do something? I was like, yeah, sure. I got the stuff. I showed them. And, she's like, yeah, this is great. So we did a bunch of pieces, not just of Batman, but, all DC stuff. And it was in their Light and Dark. It was called the Light and the Darkness show or something. And they used it for a gallery they had in downtown San Diego, and they moved it around the country a few times. And then they actually had a booth where you can make T-shirts of it. So if you can find one of those T-shirts that someone actually made, it's real merchandise. It's just no one knew about it. Like they had like a little kiosk, you can go in and order off the art. And so there's a few of that. But right around that time they did that. Hank Canals over at DC, he's like, hey, we're ready. Do you want to try? We're starting this thing called DC. Remember DC had a digital kind of like division, like where they did digital first. So digital first started with the video game stuff, the Arkham stuff, the video game stuff. Yeah,
Arkham Unhinged was coming out digital first. Yeah,
like no one knows this, but Derek and I were the ones that created the format for DC digitals. Okay. So it was tough because we didn't know what we were doing. But we were the one that created that format. And then Little Gotham came along, and they're like, finally, they know a place where they want to put it, I was like, what are we going to do? He's like, whoa, they're going to be digital. I was like, dude, that throws off the entire storytelling, which I found out today. You didn't have to. You could just draw normal pages and have them chop it up, but they wanted to be a certain format. So that's why you see a lot of the Little Gotham reads the way they are, and the panel work is the way I wouldn't normally do it. And the covers were done all, square, so that it could be cropped off digitally, read sideways, so it started a way for me to create art that could be on both formats. But so it went digital for like I think 2 issues or something, and then right then we were at the New York, we were at the DC Christmas party or New York party. And so Hank came up and he's like, hey, I know you only wanted to do 10 stories of this, but do you think you can do, 2 stories a month, which is 20 pages. So first it was 10 pages. 20 pages would be 20 pages painted. So which is like a lot more work. But I was like, yeah, dude, that's sure. I was like, yeah, it's, it's doing great. People like it. And we can actually publish it. I was like, what? So first I thought it was only going to be digital, but now we're going to publish it too. So we doubled up. We went from 10 stories to 12 stories to 24 stories. And that's how, Little Gotham came along. But,
and then you got the figures out of that too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is also directed by the guy that did the Sean Knapp, who did my Batman Beyond statue. So,
nice.
And those toys, the they're made by people that only painted for DC at the time. So they tested not only our book on digitals, but they tested our toys on like a new vendor. So like we were just always like the guinea pig. So yeah, and that went away for a while, and then we pitched Minitropolis, and Minitropolis was gonna, Minitropolis and Smallerville. So that was supposed to be like the Superman universe. That was
nice.
Almost going, but then they I think they changed the lineup, and then there's the Scribblenauts book that came out. So I guess they felt Scribblenauts looked like it. So I don't know what it was, but they only wanted one thing to look like that at a time, or people be confused, or I don't know what the excuse was. But I was just like, it's cool. I was like, you don't gotta explain to me, man. I was like, it's cool, because honestly, as much as I want to draw that stuff, I'm more comfortable drawing Batman stuff. I just know the universe better, and I know the characters better, and it's hard to do something on a monthly schedule and stay on time and put out the best stuff if you have to force it. It's like it's really hard to force things, especially if it has to be on time. So yeah, I was like, it's cool. Just wait. Just tell me when we can do more Low Gotham stuff. And yeah, so that on to this next book.
Yeah. So when you were doing Little Gotham, did you already know you wanted to do Once Upon a Crime? Because so people haven't read Once Upon a Crime yet. It's coming out in a few weeks, but you've basically taken nursery rhymes, or not nursery rhymes, but kind of fairy tales, and applied the Batman universe to them. So did you already know you wanted to do that, or was this something you came up with more recently?
I know I wanted to do more Low Gotham, and I wanted to do more city-like books. But I would say Once Upon a Crime is probably Derek's project, because he actually loves like the whole fairy tale stuff. So when they asked us to do it, they're like, what do you got? I was like, Derek, go for it, man. Like whatever you want to do. I was like, Little Gotham was like cool. We kicked it off because Little Gotham actually I wrote and he wrote. We wrote together.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Crime is entirely Derek writing it. So he that along with our Secret Hero Society stuff is Derek writing the whole thing. I would throw in a few notes there here and there, but that stuff is it's all Derek's ideas. There's a few things I just tell him what I want to draw. Like I want to do a Mr. Freeze story, Ice Queen story, and we bounce back and forth. But that's mostly Derek, because also I gotta draw. It's really like writing is hard. Like I love writing, but writing is hard, and especially when you have to follow certain criteria. Because even though we're making everything from scratch and everything, DC still has guidelines on what we can, what we can't do. So I just don't want to deal with it. It was like, dude, Derek's really good at it.
Until the day comes that you bring Little Gotham into the Black Label universe and it gets all dark.
I know, right? There's nothing wrong with it. I pitched a Little Gotham black and white statue that had the style that looked like kind of like, but it would be cool.
That would be so cool. Like those Little Gotham figures. I have all four of those. There's the Batman, the Damian, the Joker, and the Harley. And that Batman is one of my favorite Batman figures because he's just so chunky, and the proportions are just so good. He's so boxy. It's a perfect Batman figure.
Yeah, they did a great job on those figures. I was like, all designs for all four characters I did in a day, and I thought, I was like, all right, they're gonna come back with a ton of notes. Dude, he came back with the prototypes. I was like, this looks amazing. It was like they got the right sculptors, the colors, everything was like spot on. And it was those guys, I think their first time doing toys for DC. So
they smashed.
I hope they stuck with it. Yeah, they did a great job. But no, Little Gotham, it's just something. It's one of those things where I work on and it never feels like work. It's like I told Hank, I told my the head of Wallstrom that heads up head of DC that heads up the whole project. I was like, whenever you're ready, you want to do more, just tell me, because I'm going to draw it regardless. It's like, I'm going to do this stuff out there by myself regardless. You might as well print this stuff and make some money,
I wanted to point something out. So in recent years, one thing that's gotten a lot of attention in comics is how much Sean Murphy has used different Batmobiles, like, shown in the Batcave and put into use through the White Knight series. But if we go back to Heart of Hush, you were doing that back then, like your Batmobile or your Batcave scenes. You had a sort of disassembled Keaton Batmobile. I think there was a tumbler in there. You had the 66 Batmobile. So you were doing all that stuff years ago. And yeah, it's very cool that we can even go back then and see the influence of the movies and comics.
Yeah, I like personally, I love Batman. I'm a car guy, so I love cars in general. So, but the difference between Sean and I is Sean loves drawing cars. With me, I kind of like drawing cars. It's like, it's like I like drawing. I like designing things. I like drawing a few times, but I don't want to draw it over and over and over, man. It's just tiring.
Yeah,
But,
and like Sean talks about like the science of what angle cars should be drawn from because of the science of what angle they're designed to be seen from.
No, there's truth. Like in car designs, there's the 3-stroke rule, which is like to draw a successful car, the silhouette, you should only need to use 3 lines to draw that car. So if you look at any good car design, if you can't draw that shape I'm sorry, 5 lines, not 3 lines, 3 lines, in 5 lines, like
I was gonna say, damn.
It's like, damn, everything will look like the Cybertruck.
Yeah.
But so there's a certain thing about drawing cars, and and Sean definitely understands it. There's a few. He likes to do a lot of mashup too, which is great. I love seeing what he puts together. Every time I look at his cars, I'm like, all right, he used that at front end. There's the fender flare from that other car. So it's kind of fun watching.
What's cool is I think you were doing it during the time when I don't think you were allowed to, but anyway, because I remember there was a thing where you couldn't draw like movie Batmobiles in comics or something for some reason, and then that was lifted. But I think you were one of the pioneers that it's actually like incorporate like the 89 in there.
There's always the around. They had a lot of rules. Like even when I'm kind of like I try to find my way around things a lot of times. Like when Grayson became Batman, I'm like a huge Bruce Wayne fan and a huge Nightwing fan. I didn't need Dick Grayson to be Batman. Yeah. So anytime I drew him, I would draw Bruce. And then they're like, no, he doesn't have the trunk. He doesn't have the trunks, his costume. I was like, all right. So I just covered his whole legs in shadow, stuff like that. It's just, and it's just there's certain ways around it, and to get it to draw, because I have to be happy drawing it,
Yeah.
Or else it's gonna be worse. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to draw this, And that's kind of like why Streets of Gotham was made. I think it was made because Paul D and I are diehard Bruce Wayne fans. So they made Streets of Gotham where we could kind of like do stories that didn't have to be about Nightwing being Batman as much, but still tell our stories, And I think they made it just to put us kind of to the side and keep us out of the main storyline. It's fun,
That was a good book.
Dude, it was so much fun. And Paul, there's nothing like he does wrong. I remember I would look forward to scripts like I was looking forward to like Saturday cartoons, man. It was so good.
Paul Dini knows how to give these characters voices. We need a Streets of Gotham omnibus. I know we got industry guys listening, so please give us a Streets of Gotham collected hardcover.
Oh, that'd be great. Did they ever put out the They didn't put out the Hush hardcover omnibus, did they? I remember that was in the
that was canceled, but everyone says it's going to be resolicited because it would just print money. Because Hush would be in there, Heart of Hush would be in there, and all that stuff. So. I think that's inevitable. We're just waiting for them to resolicit it. Editorial's so weird. I don't know how
if anyone listening hasn't read Heart of Hush yet, definitely go back and read it, because like obviously the Jim Lee, Jeff Loeb Hush story is where Hush came in, but Heart of Hush was the story that really solidified the character as being not just this one-shot character that came in for this story. Like that really cemented him into the universe.
Yeah, if you all you new Batcat fans out there too, if you want a really intense Batman Catwoman story, man, Heart of Hush is it really tugs at the heartstrings, if you know what I mean.
Dad jokes.
The funny thing when they said that we're gonna do a Hush story, I didn't want to draw it. I was like, I don't even like Hush. I don't, because in my mind, like at the time, I was like kind of stubborn. I was like, any Batman villain created after the year 2000 is not for me. It's like I'm diehard into this whole Batman anime series, and I was like really stubborn. I wasn't like, I hated Damian. I was like, he's not a Robin. But I swear, dude, working with Dini for like maybe 3 issues in, I was like, these characters are the most amazing characters ever.
Yeah.
I was like, Like Dini really, he made it, and he kind of convinced me too, because I hated Damon when he came out. I was like, this is a character they made just for just for shock,
Yeah.
But Damon worked out, and Hush, became one of my favorite villains because he's just like dark, man.
Being that you're like kind of a purist in that sense, what do you think about characters like the Batman Who Laughs or the new Dark Knights? Or
You know what? I'm embarrassed to say I haven't read. Like my friend told me, he's like, you'll love Batman Who Laughs. I was like, oh, the guy that looks like the mouth of Sauron. He's like, yeah, that guy. I was like, but I haven't read it. I haven't really read much lately.
Yeah.
But it looks amazing. Like the most I read is like what Jock posts, because Jock's like one of my favorite artists. And every time he draws something, I'm like, oh shit, that looks so good. And but I need to read something.
Talking about how cemented in the universe, the animated series universe you were, if I could make one request, could you and Paul Dini please make a Black Label Gray Ghost book?
That would be sick, man. That would be so good.
Wow.
Yeah. You know what? Let's pitch that, dude. That would be good, man.
What up?
I'm gonna message Dan DiDio right now.
Do you have a favorite animated series episode?
I have a few, man. One was of course everyone loves the one where he went too far or something, where he killed Babs.
Over the Edge.
Yeah, Over the Edge.
Yeah, Over the Edge, that one. And dude, there's so many, man. It's really hard to say, it's like, but I'll be honest, I did like not a lot of people did like the newer stuff. I like the newer redesigned stuff.
You mean like
New Adventures?
New Adventures,
yeah. New Adventures, I did like that.
Yeah.
And I would say the only series I liked more than Batman the Animated Series was Batman Beyond. Because
thank you, because I'm like the only Batman Beyond guy in the Bat Force for some weird reason.
Really?
Yeah, it's so weird. But when I was a kid watching this stuff after school, at first I was like, what the fuck is this? Like it was so different, but I warmed up to it so much, and after a while, I'm like, this is amazing. This is such a fun idea. This is like post DKR Bruce, and he has Ace with him, and Terry McGinnis is flying around. And to me, Terry McGinnis has to be Asian, man. The guy looks so Asian. Like,
yeah, the way they draw him, I was like, oh, I think it's Asian. But he's got his name's McGinnis, though. So
yeah.
But no, man, like Batman Beyond is like, if you're a Batman fan, if you're a Bruce Wayne fan, Batman Beyond does more for Bruce than the original series did.
Yeah.
Because in the original series, it focused on everyone he was around and all the villains. But Batman Beyond was about Bruce. It was just, they investigated him instead,
Yeah.
And it was good. So remember that scene where he thought he was hearing voices in his head?
Yeah.
And then at the end they're like, how'd you know that,
Yeah, because he doesn't refer to him as that was so badass. Like,
he's like, I don't call myself Bruce in my head or something like that.
He's such a savage. Yeah. I love it. That was so. Yeah, I gotta watch some episodes tonight.
Did you notice the limo that they drove around in? The limo. So basically, in Batman Beyond, Bruce rides around in a limo, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like that limo is the first generation Batmobile. The blocky one flipped upside down. That's all it is. So,
shit.
Like that Tesla truck. That looks like something flipped over.
like the Homer.
Yeah.
I gotta. Number one, we know you've been to New York and Chicago Comic-Cons over the years. So
here we go.
New York style pizza or Chicago deep dish pizza?
You know what? I like New York. I'm not a deep dish kind of person.
Oh, nice.
Sorry,
it's just Dustin. Cancel a trip to C2E2. You don't have to worry about mailing that statue either.
He's a Chicago guy, in case you haven't known.
Chicago is giving you the key out of the city.
Yeah. Just to put in context, just so you know, I also really like White Castle. So, I'm kind of...
crave case? Ooh.
I'm questionable,
Ooh.
So...
Yeah.
Oh,
okay, you get a pass for now.
Plain or peanut M&Ms?
Peanuts.
Nice. If you could have dinner with one human being who's lived throughout history, dead or alive, who would it be?
Dude. Probably anyone from the Beastie Boys, man. Those dudes just look fun.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a cool answer. I like that.
I know you thought I was gonna say someone smart, like not. I mean, not to say that they're not smart, just like someone like like Gandhi or some shit, right? I was like,
we get a lot of David Bowies. We get some Lincolns. Who's the Beatle?
I think someone said George Harrison.
Beastie
I
Boys.
respect them. I don't want to bore them. Like if I sat down with like Lincoln,
Yeah, sorry, Abe. I know you drew. I know you wrote one of the best documents in history, but I just draw comics.
It's like I want to respect. I feel like if I, like Beast Boys, it'd be fun. Have something to talk about, and like maybe it just seems fun because you want a good time. You don't want to force them to be there with you.
It's a great answer. If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, dude, man.
A lot of creators tell us they
time travel.
Control time so they could meet their deadlines.
Yeah.
So.
No, I don't care about the deadlines. I just want time travel. If you could time travel, who cares about deadlines, man?
Man, if I could time travel, I would go back to a 90s afternoon when animated series and Ninja Turtles were on. Elio's Pizza, adjust the antenna on the TV set. That would be good enough.
See, you're like a good person. If I had time travel, I'd be like doing crime, dude. I'd be going back buying stocks.
You'd be doing the almanac thing, the Marty McFly almanac.
Dustin would be Biff Tannen.
Back to the Future.
You could own a casino.
Well, Dustin, what you're saying is that you'd be a supervillain, huh?
Oh.
I think so, man. I think so.
What if it was legal, though? But he would win fair and square, though, even though he knew the answer. So, I don't know. What was the best advice you were ever given, and who gave it to you?
It's that advice everyone gives you, like that advice you hear on TV all the time, and it was from actually my boss that I worked at the early engineering firm. He was just like, just you don't talk about politics and religion and stuff. I wouldn't say it's like the best advice. Like, yeah, I know you're supposed to express yourself, but it's one of those things where he told me, and I didn't really care at the time because I was like, I would never talk about that stuff anyways. Of course, I was like, 17 or 18 or something. But, I was like, I never would say. But then once I did start like mingling at like, Comic-Cons and, dinner parties and stuff, I found out that you really rub people the wrong way. Like when they bring it up and then you have an opinion, it seems like they don't want to talk to you anymore. If you're talking what they want to talk about, So it's one of those things where I wouldn't say that you have to hide what you are, but don't talk. I was like, unless you ask me, I'm not going to tell you. My opinion.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. And I know that's like very, very generic, but
yeah, that and also, I think people tend to read comics to trying to escape everything else. Nowadays you get hit with social media, news, with one side or the other, and comics is a nice way to kind of escape that reality.
It's tough, man. I don't think you can avoid it anyways, but
yeah,
you can less of it. So I don't know, man. I just need to get my work done and just live where I am. It's like it's kind of hard to please everyone.
100%. Robin, do we have a question from the last guest to pass over?
I don't think we have anything fresh unless we just want to pick one, but I think it's a good idea to start it again. So we've had this tradition that we've been doing for a little while where we have a guest leave a lightning round question for the next guest.
But can I give him the question from Mitch Gerard's, which is one of my favorite, but it's very simple. What's your favorite chip, potato, or chocolate?
Potatoes, man.
Nice. Freaking Mitch.
And Mitch's question was tailor-made for Chip Zdarsky. I'll point out.
It gets really silly around here with all these industry guys.
Yeah, and I like bringing this question to everyone because it was such a good one. I think still the deepest question we ever had someone give was Joey Lawrence, the guy that was on Blossom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was on the show last year, and his question was, if you had the choice to live the life of a millionaire but only live to 60, or you could live to be 100 but you live the life of a pauper, which would you choose?
I don't know, man. I don't think I can make it to either. It's like, that's pretty deep, man. I don't know. I would live long enough. I would live long enough to discover time travel, and then
I think it was maybe Jonathan Glapian that said, so wait, so I got to be old and broke?
Yeah.
That's true.
So that's a fair point.
60 is actually pretty old, and like, that's a good life, dude. Because everything after that kind of sucks. It's like I can't imagine getting like
unless
not
you're,
that 60s old.
Unless you're
I'm
Mick
40
Jagger.
something.
If anybody came to you and said, what character do you want to write or draw for that you've never done before, who would you pick? Marvel, DC, Indie, whatever.
That's good.
Does it have to be like existing character or?
It can be whatever you want. If they just came to you and said, Dustin, I want you to write or draw, ink, color, everything, pick one.
I really like the original Ninja Turtles, like the
like the Mirage stuff?
the black and white stuff when they were living on the farm and stuff,
Nice.
Yeah, the Mirage stuff, But also it has to be. It's one of those things where it depends on the time in your life, like afford to take time off to do that kind of thing. But I think that would be a nice kind of like project to do just for a short while, Or I mean, if anything, it's always I just want to do my own stuff. So I sent a pitch out to DC recently, so waiting to hear back. It's a Batman. So it is something.
So what's
Well, I think I did a sketch of it, so we'll see. It's basically I did it online. It was Batman Beyond the Thunderdome. So basically it's post-apocalyptic Gotham. So
sick.
Definitely the Elseworlds or something. So
that'd be so badass.
do people still use that word, Elseworlds?
Yeah, that's still
I think
that's
old
more
people
to
do.
refer to things now. It's not like a label anymore, but like Black Label is all Elseworlds. You know what I mean? But it's just a way to refer to it now, as opposed to being like an actual like title. Yeah.
What a great way to do different things without staying in continuity. That's cool.
That's what people want. That's why Black Label is really picking up steam now, because continuity has too many constraints, man.
And like Black Label is what brought Jeff back over to DC now. Like Jeff's doing 2 Black Label books simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's got Killer Smile and Question.
Yo, Killer Smile. That's gonna be like a 12-issue, I think, series. It's a. Or was the Joker and Harley? Oh, I can't remember. I can't even keep up anymore. Just so many titles. You guys are good multitaskers, man. I'll give you that. Jeez.
Yeah, that guy does draws and writes. It's amazing. Yeah, dude. See, time management is everything.
But man, Dust, man, we want to thank you so much for your time. This has been years in the making, man. This is the way to start 2020 in Bat Force Radio. We've been wanting to have you on this show forever. I always tell everyone you're one of the nicest guys in the industry. Every time we see you at cons, it's like seeing a friend again.
But now they know I want to be a villain. So.
Now you're gonna come back with that almanac and
that's that 2020 plan.
But
no, thank you guys. Thanks for thanks for sitting down.
Thank you so much.
I'll probably see you again very soon. I'll see you in Chicago.
Yeah, are you also doing New York this year? Do you think, or
I'll be doing this year. I'll be doing Chicago, Seattle, and New York.
Oh, cool! I'll see you.
And
this
also,
year.
I'll be in Awesome Con too.
Very cool.
And Ontario. So yeah, I'm doing a few shows this year, so it's gonna be fun.
Awesome.
All right, and before we go, I just want to end with reiterating: Batman Tales: Once Upon a Crime is out February 5th. Tell us one thing to expect from Once Upon a Crime.
Of course, Mr. Freeze. Made sure he's in there.
I love the Mr. Freeze in this too.
Fan favorite. That's awesome. Perfect.
Yeah, it's like every artist's favorite, so it's great.
All right.
Thanks again, Dust. We'll be in touch, and thanks again for everything, man.
Great. Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
Have a good night.
Hey, Gotham dwellers. Make sure to stop everything right now and subscribe to Bat Force Radio. We can be found on iTunes and SoundCloud. Don't miss out. Guaranteed to satisfy all of your Batman and DC needs.
Snyder.